Everybody feeling all trancy? Getting what you want, the way you want it? Rock on. All right. Direct drive. Let's go around real quick. Kind of debrief. Get into some other stuff. Oh, do I need those? Okay, fine. So you guys are starting to get hooked on them, aren't you? Like, the symbols aren't there. Some of you might know. I'm probably not drawing them right, but that's all right. I know what they mean. That's all that matters.
Of course you're drawing them right. They're your symbols.
Mr. JP, talk to me, baby.
I don't know. I'm just thinking in my head.
You got a loop there now?
I got a good loop going.
Good, all right. Just enjoy your loop. That's what my wife calls when I start riffing in hypnotic language. She calls it loop talking. She loves it. Then she kicks me. Because she knows the minute I start riffing, she's going somewhere, and she just... Eric, how was this for you?
I'm still listening to G. Keller for some reason. It was really good.
Good. Amazed at how just such a simple procedure can just... And people... There's a tendency for human beings to complicate things. To keep extrapolating on what's gone before until... There's this huge complex of technique when sometimes simple route is the direct route, is the best way. What did you learn from this, Steve?
What I thought was amazing was this is probably simpler than some of the other modules that we've gone through. Mm-hmm. Yesterday I was kind of, at the end of the day, I was way in overload. And I find myself, if I sleep on it for a day or so,
mm-hmm.
it kind of processes.
Yeah.
I took 3 pages notes on this, and this felt better going through that whole
Well, this is dramatically simpler and can be more powerful sometimes. Again, one of the things that you have to do is you have to, I keep coming back to this, but I try to give you enough technique, or at least a formula to follow, but not so much that you become completely dependent on the instructions that you lose the ability to pay attention to the person in front of you or to adapt. So I was telling some of you guys, think more of what I'm teaching you as ideas. Rules of thumb that you can follow and mix and match, as the situation demands. Because if you think about just the term itself, just to get a little abstract here, the term human being implies a process. We're not a human bee, right? We're a process. Human beings are a process. As long as things keep adapting and changing and shifting, the system works. It's when we try to hold on to things, when we try to follow, we did it this way before, this is how we have to do it now. Maybe, maybe not. The more rigid we become, the less adaptable we become. So while it's important to know what to do, it's also important to know when to change and when to stay the same and when to find that happy medium between both. Right? Absolutely. Don't argue with me, Saul. How was this for you?
That was like a video game, like you go and get the power up. It literally felt warm and I'm going to hear his voice. It was like, that's right, that's freaking right.
Isn't that cool?
Great, yeah.
When your words come to you from outside, it's like ding!
Yeah.
Right? And that's exactly what happens when you echo somebody. The only difference is it's amplified because the conscious filter is gone. But the words coming out of your mouth are the sweetest sounds to the person saying them. When they come back, the gates of heaven open.
I felt the energy though, the warmth and the strength that you said.
Yeah. Because it's filtered through, it's native to your environment. Remember that. Acceptance, rejection, projection, connection. What comes out of us is what we want to receive. It's that simple, it's that complex. Mr. Saul, what'd you get?
I've known about it a long time, not practiced it, and need to.
It's not sexy. It's the sexy shit that gets all the attention. It's not always, the sexy stuff isn't always the most powerful. It can be because it's unexpected until everybody knows about it and everybody's sensitized to it and they forget about the other stuff, right? like I said before, when you're going to do conversation hypnosis or NLP, the first thing people look for, the first thing people want to learn about, embedded commands. Right? Because it's 007 spy shit, right? It's cool. Nobody's looking for adverb adjective presuppositions. Nobody's looking for cause and effect. Nobody's looking for complex equivalence. And yet, they're the most fundamental aspects of our language, and they're the structure of internal belief. If you speak in cause and effect terms in complex equivalence, you can make anything cause anything and have it mean whatever you want. Period. And if you wrap it in an adverb presupposition and an awareness presupposition, not only does it cause whatever you want and mean whatever you want, they'll focus on the things that make it true. I don't know, I'm just saying. Okay? But they're not sexy. They don't call attention to themselves. You can see the look of disappointment on people when the first time they come into a CPI class and they don't know anything about how I teach or what I teach. They've just heard, like, maybe seen the YouTube videos or whatever. And I come in and I start, or actually, especially in the meetups, if they haven't seen any of the stuff on YouTube where I'm talking about adverb adjective presuppositions, the first thing they're looking for embedded commands, they're looking for thought, double binds and shit like this. And I start talking about adverb adjective presuppositions, and they go, huh? Where's the sexy shit? The sexy shit calls attention to itself in the wrong way. Okay? It's the stuff that you don't detect. The stuff that is just so fundamental you can't not do it. You can't not be without it. That works really, really well. So anyway.
Towards the end, I had actually forgotten what he had said.
You gave up, huh?
No. By the time I'd come out of it, I couldn't repeat the sentence.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You just went really deep?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's usually what happens. Is
it started over
the
and
minute
over
the looping starts, cognition starts to go, and you just go right deep into trance. And it goes into the deep unconscious. Right? Seth?
I repeated, well, actually, I reworded it several times till I found a sentence that seemed to encompass everything and was short enough that I could repeat it 20 times without falling over.
Yeah. It gets, again, there's a little bit of thought that goes into direct drive work. If you know you might do direct drive work, some of the best times to harvest material for possible suggestions is during your intake with the person. When you're listening to them and you find the words that they emotionally lean on, when you hit a portion in your direct drive or throughout your whole system of whatever techniques you're going to use, make sure you're using their words. Because just like Tara said, every time she heard her words coming back, it was like whoosh, right? In trance, it's magnified. They hear that word, they know what it means, they know what they want. It's anchored to their internal structure, to their criteria, their values, everything that's important about the reason they're there. So use them, pay attention to them, sort for them. Okay?
Oh, and by the way, I don't want chocolate.
You don't want chocolate? How's that happen? You suddenly lost the appetite, huh? But how about that water there? Is that kind of looking good?
It's about the third or fourth one so far.
And it only gets better. Isn't that cool? I can't wait to see him next time, see how he looks. I'm sure he's going to have fun with it, too. Jacob.
You go deep, and it was very pleasant. I enjoyed it a lot.
Cool.
It's very simply effective.
Simply effective. I like that. David.
It was a good exercise. I just kind of went by, what you outlined, and then just sort of went from there.
Cool. Yeah, that brings us to a little bit of a kind of a tying the bow on the suggestions thing. There were some things that I wanted to touch base with. What was it? Remember what it was I was going to talk about?
I'm not sure.
I had it a minute ago. Then Seth pattern interrupted me, and I got amnesic.
The only thing I was going to mention is that I noticed when you did it with Seth, that one of the things you didn't mention to us is that you did all the repetitive statements, then you nested in the middle of that some special suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and I do remember you were saying just how you adapted, on the fly based on the person you're working with, that you just come up with whatever at the moment and you just run with that.
Yeah. Well, that brings me back to what I was going to say. One of the ways when I'm thinking about suggestions, especially if I'm going to be giving them to myself, which is kind of where we're going next. We're getting a little bit more into self-programming now. when I create a suggestion, the first thing I do is I write it down, or I look at it in some way, and then I try to find all the possible ways I could fuck that up. All the different ways I could interpret or misinterpret or reinterpret that in such a way that would screw me up down the line. And if I find ways to do it, I change the sentence until I find one that's just impossible to screw up, or has maybe one possibility, and I already inoculate myself against that in some other suggestion. Does that make sense?
Can you give an example?
Well, for instance, one of the ones that you heard me use with Seth was, every day in every way I'm achieving my ideal size and body shape. How do you screw that up? Every day in every positive way I'm getting better and better and better. As opposed to the old ML Cooey version, every day in every way I'm getting better and better and better. How many ways could you screw that up? Could I get better and better at screwing myself up? Is that a possible way? Right? Just simple, because we have people who sort by exception, right? Right? And they look for the example that disproves the generality. And I have one of those. Right? We call them smartasses in real life. Right? The technical term is pain in the ass. Right? So, and I give myself those every day in every way suggestions a lot. But you have to look at, how could I potentially screw that up? Is it possible to generalize into something that I don't want? Could I in fact get better at procrastinating? Could I in fact get better at eating too much food? Could I get better at being disrespectful to people I shouldn't? Right. Every day in every beneficial way, I am getting better and better and better. Every day, and again, just give yourself, test it. Worst case scenario. You can take anything to extreme, but I think you get the idea. If it can be misinterpreted, change it, and make it general and pervasive enough that it gives you what you want, right? Because there are people who will find ways to screw themselves up, in spite of your best intentions. Yes, sir.
I'm real good at that.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the nice thing about it is, when you create a suggestion that you're going to give to yourself, you know what you mean. So the chances of it are a little smaller. But why take the chance? And chances are, if you can't screw it up and you created the sentence and you're looking for all the ways, it's going to be hard for the other guys to screw it up because they don't think about it that much. Right? So, ideal size and body shape, perfect example. Every day in every way I'm doing things to ethically create more wealth for myself. Important distinction.
Ethically and legally.
There we go. Mismatcher, see? Morally. Screw morals.
Close enough to ethically.
My opinion on morals are just man's attempt to control man. So they change as the weather changes, or the ruling party changes. Right? Follow universal principles. Derive your ethics from the principles, not what other people say other people said. That make sense? Anyway, that's my ethics discussion.
Present progressive.
Present progressive. One of the things that I kept coming back with people on in terms of present versus present progressive is that in the world according to David, present progressive tends to eliminate the possibility of failure, or in this case, negation. For instance, if I am doing a weight loss suggestion and I'm saying to myself, I now weigh 158 pounds. And I look in the mirror and I'm this huge. Or I go to the scale and it says 205. And what I see in the mirror on the scale doesn't match that suggestion. There's a possibility of a dissonance there. Does that make sense? Present progressive tends to eliminate that, because it just means you haven't gotten there yet. It eliminates the temporal aspect to such a degree that it's still possible for you. It's happening. You're in process. That makes sense? So it's a subtle distinction, and it's one I make but because I am a bit of a mismatcher in certain areas, first I sort for similarity, then I sort for difference. So you can see kind of how I bring about my suggestions. I look for a really cool suggestion, and I look for ways I can screw it up, as opposed to looking for all the ways I can screw up a suggestion and then looking for a way to make it work, or the way to generalize. So there are sorting filters that we all use, but if you're going to use a present tense one, it's really good in a future pace. Like if you project them into the future, where you are now X, Y, Z, you have them look around, experience what that feels like, and look back on that moment as the start of it, and see how they've become that, and give them that experience of having it. Remember, as a human being, we fight harder to keep something we've already got than to get something new. So if you can give somebody the experience of having it and then remove them from it, they will fight like the dickens to get it back. Okay? You see this a lot. When just imagine yourself owning this brand new home. Imagine driving up after work every day, seeing that beautiful home, your kids playing in the yard, and the freedom that knows that no matter what happens, that home is yours. It's the dream home. Your wife is happy. Your children are happy. You go home, you sit in your living room, you smear the crackling of the fire, you hear it, you smell the food cooking in the kitchen. Isn't that a wonderful feeling? Sign here.
And the sign you see, if you lived here, you'd be home now.
Yeah, put them in it.
David, have you ever been in real estate?
No, but I've coached a lot of real estate people. I've coached them because the concept is universal. Put them in it. And once they're in it, everything else is presupposed. Okay. Matter of fact, for almost 2 years, we held our meetings in a real estate office. That's where I met you, as a matter of fact. You came to our NLP Power Meetups. It was in the office of a real estate office. It was in the lobby of a real estate office. Yeah. But yeah, realtors tend to really embrace NLP style stuff. And there's one or two really good guys. I forget who's doing it. But CPI tends to be a little bit more practical than NLP for business work. Just because it's designed for business people. If it works in the business world, it translates really, really well into the therapy world. It's the inverse of what you might think. Originally, NLP and hypnosis came from the therapy world, and they tried to adapt it to the business world, and then ultimately to the seduction world. And it wasn't a really great fit. I mean, it took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and metaphorical and literal groin kicking, or getting kicked in the groin, to make it practical. Now the irony part is that the stuff that's coming from the seduction community, from the business, and from the seduction community into the business world, is what's happening now. This is back in 2005. I started taking what was in the seduction community back into the therapy world, and was getting huge shifts because that stuff is honed in a hostile environment. If it'll work in a hostile environment, it'll work in a more beneficial and benevolent one. Okay. Anybody ever read Dune by Frank Herbert? Okay. Some of you might even know the guy. But the whole point is in that book, there's this race of people called the Fremen, who are the fiercest warriors on the planet because they grew up in the harshest environment in the known universe, next to maybe Seleucus Secundus, which is where all the prison colonies were, right? And because they grew up in that environment, they were just tough. So wherever they went, they dominated because of where they grew up. The therapy world, as a rule, is very loving, very white light, with the exception of a few, electroshock therapy treatments and, the provocative Frank Farley methods and things like that. But as a rule, it's very white lightish. It's very can't do this, can't do that, shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that, and it's based on the concept of acquiescence to authority, and just because you're there to get help. That's not the same. It doesn't give you the same level of skill set, tenacity, or situational awareness as approaching a hot blonde with her friends in a bar where you can barely hear yourself think, much less actually hold a conversation and get them interested in you and want to actually dance with you or something else. Does that make sense? But if you can take the skills that get their attention and get them compliant, put them in a softer environment, you dominate. So you have to remove the technique from the context in which it was developed, look at it in terms of the operators and how it translates into other scenarios, and is it effective there? Generally speaking, the harsher environments, the less forgiving the environments, the more effective the technique. In a martial context, we say, what works in the street will always work in the dojo or the karate school, but what works in the karate school will not always work in the street. Okay? A little bit of a martial metaphor, but it kind of brings things home. And that's what we want to think about. We want to think about real world. We want to think about street level, not just one small context. Okay? Let's apply as many stringent tests to what we do and really pressure test it and field test it and then gain the confidence in it that way, because the environment is going to be a big factor. Environment's always big. All right, so did I get everybody or no? Big John.
What I got out was that some of the basic stuff has an incredible impact.
Yeah.
I mean, the gray room
Yeah.
still, I think, worked on both of us
Mm-hmm.
to a huge point to where by the time we got to the direct suggestions, we were probably already there.
Yeah. Very cool. So did you guys do, did you do Gray Room 1 and 2, or just Gray Room and then Magic Frame and then Direct Suggestion?
Gray room 1 and 2.
Okay, so Intervention 1, Intervention 2, Intervention 3. Magic of threes, baby. Multiple interventions, deepens you, and drives everything prior home.
Cool.
Okay, yeah. Very cool stuff. Just gets better, though. I'm afraid. Sorry. All right, so now that we have an understanding of gray rooms, we have an understanding of general negativity clearing, specific negativity clearing, direct drive, how to give good suggestions, we're going to take a little bit of a detour from the identity by design silo, even though we're not, and we're going to start talking about self-work, programming yourself. Okay? Since we're on the subject of suggestions and direct drive, this is actually a really fun segment, but we're going to talk about a self-hypnosis method that I learned from Jerry Kine, and we're going to go through some variants on it some tweaks. I haven't tweaked it all that much because it was just so elegant that it's just good. Okay? But one of the things that I want to kind of elaborate on is not every form of self-programming is ideal for every type of activity. Okay? They can be used for any type of activity. Most people, when they learn self-programming, they only learn one method. I'm going to teach you at least 3 ways to do the same thing. Would that be okay? Okay. So since we're on self-programming, does anybody need to use the restroom or anything?
Yeah.
Let's take 7 minutes. Queue up. You already have 80% of what you need to know. You know how to go into trance, right? So a couple things we want to do is we want to figure out, when we do self-programming, the biggest hurdle is trance, right? Now, if you are going to use these skills professionally, at some point you will probably want to teach somebody how to hypnotize themselves. The most efficient way to teach somebody to hypnotize themselves is to hypnotize them first. A lot. Okay? The reason for that is we want to build a very, very clear pathway and a very, very clear sensation of trance. We want them to be intimately familiar with what it feels like. That being said, many times the dynamics of self-induced trance versus hetero-induced trance, in other words, somebody else driving you through a process, are a little bit different. A lot of that is because we're trying to be the driver and the passenger at the same time. So one of the things we want to begin to work with when we're doing self-programming is we want to minimize that. We want to set up a structure to our trance work in such a way that at this point we're the driver, this point we're the passenger. Jerry's process is probably the most elegant I've seen because you completely separate them. So what you do in this part of the process is very, very simple. I'm going to teach you how to give the suggestions, and then we're going to go into the self-training protocol. Is that okay? When you give suggestions, they should be simple, one line, two lines at the most. Every day in every way, I'm getting better and better and better. We'll use that as our primary example. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take that suggestion. You're going to write it on an index card or a piece of paper. You're going to find a place where you will not be disturbed. Do not do this while driving. Some of you will be silly. And I shouldn't have to say that, but as I'm constantly being reminded, common sense is not so common. You're going to take your whatever that suggestion is, one suggestion only. You're going to write it on your little index card or piece of paper. You're going to hold it up at a 45-degree angle. This process presupposes you have an induction trigger already set. We will be doing that as part of our training. You're going to look up, and with as much emotion, enthusiasm, conviction, and certainty as you can muster, you are going to direct drive yourself into oblivion. So what's going to happen is you're going to look at that sentence or that suggestion, and you are going to repeat it internally and externally as loudly and as passionately and as convicted as you can until you get really tired of saying it, and then keep saying it. When you're about to reach an emotional crescendo, an emotional peak in that process, hit your trigger, drop the paper, go deep into trance, and just be. Okay? You have the programming phase, the induction, and the cooking phase, as I like to call it. Okay? You're letting the suggestions process. That's it. I see a question brewing, John.
No, I'm actually practicing.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to build it to the emotional peak.
Mm-hmm.
And then whatever.
As you reach your emotional peak,
something else.
let everything drop. You don't go and put it down. Everything goes boom. Okay? The magic is not in the paper. Okay? Some people actually hoard their little suggestions. They keep them like little icons. And there's no magic in the paper. It's focus. Up, if you can hold it into visual memory or visual create, whatever you want to do. But the idea is we want to get the meat involved. Got it? Voice, remember we talked about the more you can vocalize something, the more power it has, because the more channels you're coming in on neurologically. Now obviously, if your walls are paper thin or you're in an environment like this, you don't want to be shouting out to the rafters. You might, because they might come get you with a net. Okay? But you can repeat, sub-vocalize, but remember, emotional intensity, conviction, certainty, over and over and over again. Visualize the image if you want, make a mental movie. Whatever you're doing, as intensely and as vividly as you can for the space of the programming phase. Hit your trigger, drop all the way into trance, and let it go. No cognition whatsoever. Whatever happens, happens. Enjoy the juicy, tasty sensations of trance. Realizing that the programming's already done and now you're just letting it cook. The cake's in the oven. Okay? As opposed to the turkey. That's it. And understand that you'll naturally emerge when it's appropriate and you know you've got it. You can always put that in. And in fact, when we go through the training phase, the self-training phase, you'll be building that in anyway. Okay? Does everybody here have at least a smartphone with a stopwatch?
No, the smartphone, but I got a stopwatch.
Okay. If you have a stopwatch or something that has a 30-second to a minute timer, that'll be helpful. Okay? So, questions? Okay, so that's method one for giving yourself suggestions. Second method is a sleep programming method that we're going to talk about real quick. Very, very similar to the kind method. What we want to do when we go to sleep at night is we want to take those suggestions and we want to think about them over and over and over again. Let them dominate our thoughts, make mental movies of them as we drift to sleep. The nature of the mind and body is such that we automatically, unconsciously process what we're thinking about as we fall asleep. That's why many times you hear the terms, "Oh, I need to sleep on it." It's because while we sleep and while we dream, our brain starts to create all these, engages in what we call neuroplasticity. It begins to create subneural connections. It begins to process the information of the day. That usually happens, and that's why many times we have shitty stuff going on at night, because we're thinking about the stress we're going to have in the morning or whatever. So let's start taking control of that and start really programming in what we want our brains to really focus on and develop as we go to sleep. Okay? It's just a variant of the process we've just talked about. The third process is very, very useful if you're going to be working with athletics or working with, well, pretty much anything. I mean, they're all universal. They can be. You can use the kind method to improve sports. You can use the sleep method to do it. This particular method is actually from the book Red Gold. It's based on Russian autogenics or self-programming, but they got it. Actually, has its roots in ancient esoteric Christian mysticism. Specifically, the Jesus Prayer of the Heart, which is if you know Greek or Russian Orthodox, you may be familiar with that prayer. But it's not the wording itself that's important, but the methodology that they use to impact the meat suit. So the way it works is when you become self-referential, you breathe in. When you're programming the effect or the event you want to have, you breathe out. So if I were to use the Jesus prayer as an example, they might say something like, as they breathe in, "Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, as you exhale, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me." Inhale, exhale. So you time the suggestions with the breath portions. Now, taking that religious aspect out of it, every day in every way, I'm getting better and better and better. Every day in every way, I'm getting better and better and better. So the action phase is on the exhale. The action or event that you want to manifest in the body, in the mind, whatever, is on the exhale. The referential part, I am becoming, is on the inhale. So just to play with that right now, just close your eyes. Another thing you can do is you can actually take your mind and focus on the space between your eyebrows. And put your mind there until you start to feel a pulse. When you start to feel a pulsing in that area as your mind goes to that space, slowly begin to let that pulse begin to travel downward. Through your nose, through the roof of your mouth, into your throat maybe, in the pit of your throat. And down into the space where as you breathe in, there's a space in the path your breath takes where it enters the heart. As you breathe into that area, let the pulsing move to that space. As you do that, you may begin to notice that you become aware of your heartbeat. Whether you do or you don't, that's fine. But as you breathe into that space, just repeat to yourself, every day, in every way. As you exhale, I'm getting better and better and better. Time it with your breath on the in and on the exhale. Slow and continuous. every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better and better. In through the nose, out through the mouth, into the heart, out through the heart. And open your eyes when you're ready. Try not to look so blissed out.
I need a cigar.
You need a cigar?
I need a cigar.
Okay. Very simple, very powerful. Coordinate your suggestions with your breathing. Work from the heart. Okay. By the way, are they mutually exclusive? Could you use all of these simultaneously? Say yes.
Yes.
They're synergistic. Right? Couldn't you be lying in bed at night? Every day in every way, I'm getting better and better and better. Right? As you drift off to sleep at night, couldn't you breathe in and out, saying suggestions? Right? 3 discrete methods that are synergistic. You can use them in tandem or on their own. Okay. I need a pro, John. I would bring David up, but he never likes to be on camera.
Okay, I don't have to hear about
This one you will. All right. So what's going to happen now? Everybody get out your stopwatches.
Stopwatch or timer?
Whichever's more whichever you can most easily work, because sometimes using a stopwatch on your function on your smartphone is like doing calculus. You want to be able to turn it off and on really quick. So, timer, stopwatch. I don't know. I think I might use a stopwatch function on this. I don't know how it works, but.
That's what I'm asking. Are we trying to...
Well, what's going to happen is first we're going to set reinduction triggers. Actually, we're going to do it all at once. We're going to set a reinduction trigger, and then we're going to begin to train our unconscious mind to go in and out of trance on demand for a specific increment of time, and then come out spontaneously. Okay? This is something that I don't see a lot of people doing out in the field. Jerry does it. He's the only one I've seen do it. Even though a lot of people teach like the finger drop as a reinduction trigger and things like that, beyond giving suggestions and doing the induction trigger, they don't really do much to enhance your ability to do self-programming. What we're going to be working with now is we're going to actually begin to develop a trust and an ability with your unconscious mind. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to begin to teach you how to go into trance for a specific amount of time and then have your unconscious mind spontaneously bring you out without having to consciously track the number of elapsed minutes or seconds or whatever. So what we're going to do is, John, I want you to just close your eyes all the way down, deeper and deeper down. As I continue to talk, your body's going to continue to relax. That's right. Deeper and deeper. And now in your mind, I want you to pretend that I've just run the 4 magic bullets on you, where we've had you open and relax your eyes till you know they won't work. Opened and closed them, relaxed your body completely, and lost the alphabet in your mind. Notice how much deeper you relax. That's right. Now in a moment, I'm going to take my hand off of your shoulder, and I'm going to talk to the audience for a moment. When I put my hand back, you'll know I'm talking to you, and we'll continue with the next part of our demo. That's right. Okay. It's obvious. It should be. It should not have to be said that if you're teaching somebody self-hypnosis, that you actually do a formal trance induction. Okay? I'm using I would do the 4 magic bullets because it's just going to eliminate a lot of doubts. Okay? Just do the 4 magic bullets, deepen the daylights out of them, do it 3 or 4 times. Okay? If you want to do fractionation where you bring them out of trance, put them back, bring them back up, put them out over and over again, that's fine. However you want to do it is fine, but we want to get as deep and juicy a state of trance as possible because we want to link it. We want to give post-hypnotic suggestions that are to take effect, not just in trance, but also once you've emerged them. Okay, that's basically the definition of a post-hypnotic. So John, in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, we're going to do something really cool. And I hope somebody in the audience will set a timer for 30 seconds for me. We're not going to use it just yet, but in a moment, when we get to that portion, we'll be using it. In a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, John, I'm going to do something really, really cool. I'm going to pick up, I'm going to ask you one real quick question. Would you prefer the hypnosis trigger to be on your left hand or your right hand? First impression.
Left.
Left hand, good. In a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to ask you to open and close your eyes. Each and every time you close your eyes, I want you to double this wonderful trance state that you're in. Want it to happen, expect it to happen. Enjoy the process of allowing it to happen. 10 times deeper than ever before, and it only gets better. Open your eyes. Open your eyes, that's right. Deep sleep all the way down. Open your eyes. Deep sleep all the way down. Open your eyes. Deep sleep all the way down, deeper. And deeper down, just letting go. That's right. Now in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to pick up this finger with the fingers of my left hand. When I raise that finger up, you're going to notice that you're going to begin to rise up from this deep, deep trance to a slightly higher level of trance, maybe even almost all the way awake. When I drop the finger, you're going to notice that every time I drop that finger, you're going to go 10 times deeper into trance than you are right now, each and every time. So as I pick this finger up, you notice the trance comes up. You can look around. As I drop that finger, it goes all the way down, 10 times deeper. Lift that finger up, you come all the way up. Finger goes down all the way down. All the way up. All the way down. That's right. And from this moment on, anytime you want to go into trance, either through being guided through somebody else or on your own, all you have to do is raise that finger up and let it drop, and down you go all the way down. And now, just to prove how well this works, all I want you to do now is, when you're ready, when you want to experience the most juicy, enjoyable, luscious trance state you've ever had, just let that finger float up and notice how you begin to come up out of trance. Become more and more awake, more and more aware. And when you want to experience the most juicy, intense, pleasurable, highly programmable trance state ever, just let it drop. Poof. All the way down. Deeper and deeper down. That's right. Come all the way up. All the way down. All the way up. All the way down. 10 times deeper. How cool is that? Now, in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, John, I'm going to raise your finger up, just like this. You can come up. And I'm going to leave this hand just like this for you. Leave that finger up. And now all I want you to do is, I want you to keep repeating this process at will over and over again until you're sure you've got it. Finger goes down, you go down. Finger comes up, you come up. So go ahead and just cycle through that as many times as you need to wire that in completely. And I know you're really good at this, so I know it's going to happen really fast. Just nod your head when you know it's done. Each time better than the time before. Unstoppable programming. Unstoppable power. You're just getting better and better and better at this. All set? A few more times? Go ahead. I think he's just playing with the lever now. Good. Now, in a moment, John, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to raise your finger up. And now we're going to begin to do something really cool. We're going to begin to train and work with your unconscious mind to be able to take you into trance and bring you out at exactly the right time. So in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to raise this finger up just like this. You're going to come up out of trance, almost completely out. And now what I want you to do is I want you to repeat after me. I'm about to go into trance for exactly 30 seconds.
I'm about to go into trance for exactly 30 seconds.
At which time I will immediately emerge.
At which time I will immediately emerge.
Every time I do this,
Every time I do this,
it works better than the time before.
it works better than the time before.
Okay. Going into trance for exactly 30 seconds.
Going into trance for exactly 30 seconds.
At which point my unconscious mind will emerge me.
At which point my unconscious mind will emerge me.
Every time I do this,
Every time I do this,
it works better than the time before.
it works better than the time before.
Now what I want you to do with that suggestion is I want you to repeat it over and over again, either verbally or non-verbally with the maximum emotional intensity that you can, with the amount of certainty that you can muster. When you know it's ready, when you know you've got it, I want you to allow that finger to drop. You will go into trance for exactly 30 seconds, at which point your unconscious mind will immediately raise that finger, bringing you up almost completely out of trance. That'll be your first phase, and then we'll continue to just make it better and better and better. So if you'd rather have your eyes open or closed, it doesn't matter, whatever more comfortable for you. Repeat those suggestions over and over and over again. When you know you've got it, when you know it's locked in, let the finger drop and let the process happen. Can I use it? .3 don't suck on the first try. Okay? I knew he had a good unconscious. That's one of the reasons I chose him for this. So pick that up. Give yourself those wonderful suggestions over and over and over again. When you know you've got it, when you know it's true, let the finger drop and go right back in. Exactly 30 seconds, emerge when the time is right. The secret to this is the repetition. Okay? Your unconscious mind learns best from consistent feedback. How do we do?
35 and a half.
Okay, good. Again, see, this is what I mean. There will be a range. You're calibrating. The unconscious mind needs the ability to make the relationship between the external environment and the internal environment, because the unconscious mind has no static time sense that we understand. So, still 35 seconds doesn't suck, right? You what?
Anything within 5.
Yeah, I mean, and again, you'd be amazed how quickly you get this if you just let the unconscious mind do it. Okay? So go ahead, John, repeat that again. Drop it down. Go for it. It don't suck. Very good. I want to send congratulations and good feelings to your unconscious mind for saying, thank you for doing such a great job. Now I want you to make it even better. Just relax. Your unconscious mind learns really fast. So I want you to begin to repeat those suggestions again and again, over and over again. I'm about to go into trance for exactly 30 seconds, at which point I will instantly emerge. Each time I do this, I will get better. I am getting better than the time before. When you're ready, make it happen. He's getting to like it too much. That's all right. That's the point. Is what'll happen is like you'll start to get this urge to come out, and you're like, not yet, not yet. All right, and that's okay. We need to kind of work through that. And trust me, there's going to be a range, and then all of a sudden you'll start to hit consistent time. So one more time, Big John. Finger comes up. Trance, 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 trance. I'm about to go into trance for exactly 30 seconds, at which point I will spontaneously emerge. Each time I do this, I will, in fact, do better than the time before. Allowing for the difference in when they actually hit the stop button. Doesn't suck for a few minutes, huh? Now the secret to this is however long it takes is however long it takes. You guys have been going in and out of trance all week. You've been programmed out the wazoo. Your clients may need a little bit more prep work. But this is huge for your clients, because the only reason they have to believe that your stuff is going to work is because you told them it would. When they have this, they have experience, it's a convincer on a huge level. Not only that hypnosis works, that they can be hypnotized, but they can actually do it for themselves. It's easy for them to believe you have the power to make change in them. It's a much different experience for them to believe they have the power to make change in them. Okay? It's a simple little drill, but the equivalence of it is huge. So it's very simple. You're going to get with you come all the way out of trance now, John. It's good. Noticing how good you feel. Each time you go into trance, it's just going to get better. It can't do anything else. It's only going to get better. Better. You can think about what that might feel like. Right? Okay? So you're going to put your person into trance, deepen it and get it nice and juicy, establish your induction trigger. Okay? When you have the trigger firmly established, you're going to give them the opportunity, you're going to go into trance for exactly 30 seconds, at which point you're going to immediately emerge. Each time you do this, you get better than the time before. If you want to, you can actually put them in trance for exactly 30 seconds, bring them out, put them in trance for exactly 30 seconds, bring them out, and then have them take over and do it. Because one of the things that sometimes is helpful is to give them a firm experience of what 30 seconds feels like. As you go through this as the subject, you're going to have the urge to want to try to count, to try to time it in some way. Stop. That's not the mechanism we're trying to work with. We're trying to work with the other side of you. You'll have to learn to trust it. You have to be willing to be wrong a few times. Okay, some of you will probably get it right off the bat. Some of you may take a few tries, and then after a while, there'll be a range that you'll fall in. And some people, they were down to like the nanosecond last time, right? I mean, they were like within like 1 second either way. It was ridiculous. Well, it wasn't ridiculous. It was cool. But the fact that you can get consistent results like that is proof. And we desperately need proof in this world. Okay? Especially when we're dealing with subjective stuff. Does that make sense? Again, this is something I don't see a lot of people doing. But anytime we can take something subjective and apply and establish an objective measuring device to it, we enhance everything. Feedback is the breakfast of champions, as John LaTourette likes to say. Let's partner up and let's rock this. Go.